Tome of Execution, Act 1, Chapter 1, Accelerated Malice. The air hung heavy with a surreal energy, a charged tension that prickled against the skin and echoed in the bones. It was as if the very atmosphere recognized the gravity of the moment, wrapping the landscape in an unrelenting hum. Above the sky unraveled into a dramatic tapestry of deep indigos and streaks of crimson, the last vestiges of sunlight bleeding into the impending night. Before Taisea loomed Osteria, the gateway to the mirror realm. Its jagged onyx rocks shimmered with an eerie, unnatural glow, their surfaces flickering like living mirrors. Each rock reflected fractured, distorted images of young Taisea. Some reflections mirrored his present form, steadfast, defiant, and posed. Others depicted alien versions. One grinned knowingly, its movements out of sync, while another scowled with an intensity that seemed to burn through the barrier between worlds. The mirror shards rippled like water, alive and observing, bending and contorting, as though conscious of the one who stood before them. Taisea inhaled deeply, his breath steady and shallow, his golden eyes locked on the gateway. The faint crunch of frost-covered ground beneath his boots punctuated his steps as he moved closer. Each step seemed to resonate with the crackling energy that emanated from the rocks, the pulse matching the rhythm of his own heart. Suddenly, from the shifting reflections, another figure emerged. Ancient Taisea stepped forward, his presence radiating authority and an unsettling calm. His robes, though tattered, carried an air of regal purpose, the fabric swirling around him in an eternal breeze. Lines of wisdom etched his face, and his golden eyes burned with an intensity that hinted at burdens beyond comprehension. Life moves incredibly fast, Taisea, the elder spoke, his voice a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to come from the very ground beneath them. Young Taisea halted, his gaze sharpening as defiance sparked within him. The elder's words, though heavy, did not intimidate him. They were a challenge, one he intended to meet. You better evolve, ancient Taisea continued, his tone grave, or you will be lost forever. My metamorphosis is almost complete, young Taisea replied, his voice steady, his resolve evident. Nothing can stop me from executing my vision. The mirror rocks hummed louder, as if amplifying the tension between the two. Ancient Taisea tilted his head slightly, his piercing gaze cut through the younger version as though seeing every possibility within him. You, the first Taisea, the elder said, his words deliberately carrying the weight of lifetimes. It was in the seed where you began iteration. He stepped closer, the faint glow of the mirrors casting an ethereal light on his weathered features. I will train you in execution and technique. Behind him, the mirrors shimmered again, displaying potential futures of young Taisea. Victories glittered alongside failures, triumph and despair balanced in equal measure. The fractured possibilities seemed to taunt and inspire in the same breath. You have trials that will refine you, the elder said, his voice deepening, but you will not peak. The first lesson is recognizing this. There is never a right time. Ancient Taisea placed a hand on young Taisea's shoulder, the weight of his touch immense, grounding him like an anchor. For a moment, the hum of the realm quieted, and the world narrowed to the connection between them. The only truth, the elder intoned, is to start. Young Taisea's eyes flashed with determination. What begins, Taisea? The trial of venom? Ancient Taisea's expression shifted to one of faint amusement, a collection of fables, meta-fantasies vision. With a smirk, young Taisea nodded. Bring it on. The elder's approving smile was brief, replaced by a seriousness that settled like a storm cloud. The energy in the air sharpened, the hum of the realm evolving into a chorus of indistinct whispers. You must understand this, ancient Taisea said, his voice cutting through the hum. Lesson 2. You must always be prepared to close the loop. The words struck young Taisea like a bell's toll. His brow furrowed, his mind racing to grasp their full meaning. Ancient Taisea stepped back, his form partially obscured by the flickering light of the mirror realm. Taisea, the elder said, raising a hand and tracing an invisible clock face in the air. In one instance, it all changes. A faint ticking sound filled the air, growing louder with each beat, as if an invisible clock were keeping time with their confrontation. Tick-tock, ancient Taisea said. Young Taisea's eyes widened in realization. You refer to the dragon clock. A traveling frigate, the elder replied. The trial of execution. This is only the beginning. Young Taisea exhaled, his breath visible in the chill that crept over the clearing. His gaze drifted to the horizon, where the mirror light reflected the fiery edge of the setting sun. I do not even know where to go, he admitted, frustration seeping into his voice. The river's tension brings with it eternal heat, a freeze in growth. He clenched his fist, shaking his head. That's all I do. I collect the tales of the path. The elder's gaze softened, but his words carried a subtle reproach. You miss steps. You are taking a different approach than most. With a sweeping gesture, ancient Taisea indicated the horizon, where smoke and fractured light merged to reveal the intricate maze of the mirror realm. The paths twisted and wound beneath the dual glow of the sun and the rising moon. Through the smoke and the maze, the elder said, his voice quieter now, under the sun and the moon. He moved closer, brushing young Taisea's hand and leaving behind an invisible weight, a deck of cards that only the younger iteration could feel. The deck is in your palms, ancient Taisea continued. Be precise in your timing. Bide your strikes wisely. The mirrors flashed rapidly, their surfaces displaying scenes of chaos and triumph. The elder's eyes burned brighter, their intensity matching the frenetic energy of the reflection. Anchor in the dragon's breath, he said, his voice gaining urgency. This will be your greatest tool. The path will evolve into a dangerous one. The weight of his words pressed down like an invisible force. That is the call of the crow. Step, young demi-titan. This is your chance. Dance, bear dance. Young Taisea's breathing quickened, his chest rising and falling as if the weight of the moment threatened to crush him. The elder stepped closer, his presence all-encompassing. The mirrors flashed with blinding light, glyphs and symbols burning into the air like molten metal. The teardrops of materialization, ancient Taisea said, his voice rising with a crescendo of power. It will come in a flash. The transmission, chaos begins to pour from your steps. Even without your etheric memory, the glyphs are still uncovered. It's embedded in my bloodline, Taisea whispered to himself. The elder's expression softened, and for the first time his tone carried a gentleness that pierced the charged air. Remember, Taisea, that it is all real. One mind, one song, one dream. With those words, ancient Taisea stepped back, his form fading into the shimmering light of the mirror realm. His final words echoed heavy with promise and challenge. The berserker, what emits from the depths, son of Kronos, the demi-titaned wind-swept. Action, it's the only way out. Young Taisea's jaw tightened, his golden eyes blazing with newfound determination. I will transmute, he said, his voice resolute, no matter how many iterations it takes. The mirrors around him glowed with renewed intensity, their fractured light casting a kaleidoscope of shadows. Taisea stepped forward, his figure outlined against the pulsating glow of Asteria. The hum of the mirror realm swelled into a crescendo, carrying him into the unknown and the next chapter of his journey.